The world of Hyrule in Ocarina of Time is filled with mystery. There are loads of unanswered questions. For example, what is the maximum size of a Stalchild? Can you deflect lasers with your shield? Can you drink a Poe? And what happens when you drop a fish right before learning Saria's song? Well, today we will look into that and more. So, let's dive right in. Now, on your big quest to save the world from Ganondorf, you have to venture to Death Mountain at some point, which you can only enter after showing this guard Zelda's letter. However, when you do so, the guard will tell you that your Kokiri shield isn't gonna cut it. This is an active volcano after all, so you're better off getting a proper shield in Hyrule Castle Town. And if you tell the store owner about the guard's tip, he will give you a discount. However, many folks claim that this doesn't happen whatsoever. You will pay full price for the shield no matter what. So I decided to investigate the situation. And yeah, it looks like people are right. But then I bought it to see if anything would happen. And all of a sudden I got a discount, which can vary. The maximum is 20 rupees and the minimum is 5 rupees. So yeah, the discount is real. And people online were just confused because the discount wasn't applied immediately. You only see it as soon as you try to buy it. So in the end, it is a thing. Back in the day, before the internet was as big as it is now, it was a lot harder to figure out if a claim or myth was fake or real. And so for a long time, some rumors out there were borderline impossible to verify. So most either thought they were definitely real or 100% fake. One great example of this is the Hylian Loach, a special fish that could be found in the fishing pond close to Lake Hylia. According to folks online, it is very rare, incredibly hard to catch, requires certain actions for it to even spawn in the pond, and has weird erratic behavior overall. Due to this, it was a legend for a long time. But is it really in the game? Well, yes, but catching it requires a lot of patience and skill. And after looking at some guides, I can tell you it isn't easy to catch this fish, and I bet that's why all of this turned into one huge myth. Heck, you even have to enter, pay, and exit 4 times before it even spawns. So a lot of the time, it isn't even in the pond. But in the end, it is real. However, if you ever plan to catch it, I would advise that you do your homework, because man oh man, it can be super tricky. When you finally reach Ganon's castle and beat all of the obstacles inside of it, you are left with only one task: defeat Ganondorf. And so you confront him, which leads to the most intense game of tennis where Ganondorf starts shooting energy balls at you and you have to smack them back using your sword. However, I wondered, can you only do this with a sword? I mean, we all know that the Master Sword and Big Goron sword work, as well as a bottle for some reason, but can you use any other items? Well, I decided to try a couple of things. First, I tried to use the Megaton hammer, and while it was tricky due to the timing, it did work. So I tried the same thing with the bow, which led to me taking some hits. So I grabbed the long shot, but again, it didn't work. By the looks of it, only melee attacks work, even if they deal no damage like the bottle. And trying to use anything else in this fight is nothing more than a big waste of time. One thing I love about Nintendo games is the Easter eggs they will hide all over the place. They are always fun, interesting, or give you great rewards. And one well-known Easter egg in Ocarina of Time is the portraits of Super Mario characters that you can see in the castle courtyard. And if you shoot at them with your slingshot, you will be able to get some rupees out of it. But apparently you can't do this everywhere, because if you shoot through the window across from this one, then you're in trouble. A guard will yell at you not to do that, and as a punishment throws a bomb at you without hesitation. Now, I had never seen this, so I shot through the window to see what would happen. And yeah, a guard does pop into frame right away and throws a bomb even though Zelda is right there! Which is pretty crazy because man, if something happens to her, he is 1000% fired. Like, no way he's gonna stay. But hey, better defend that window like it's made out of gold and jewels. But all of this does show that the claim is true. And I gotta say, this is now one of my favorite Easter eggs in the game. Once you finally make it to Death Mountain and talk to the Goron leader Darunia, you are sent on a special quest. The Dodongo Caverns are infested with Dodongos and its entrance is blocked. So Link, the hero, has to solve all of these issues. Now once inside, you will quickly come across a very annoying enemy, the baby Dodongo, who will constantly follow you and lunge right at you. And of course, it's not just one of them, but an entire group that will annoy the heck out of you. But there's apparently a little trick to get rid of them. For some odd reason, this enemy loves bombs and will completely ignore you in favor of an explosive. They love them so much that they will even eat them, even though it freaking kills them. But is this true? Well, I went inside of the cave and threw a bomb as soon as baby Dodongos came out of the ground. And yeah, you can see that they will instantly focus on it. And one of them was even able to eat it. So weirdly enough, they love them, but as soon as they become a bit bigger, then they don't care for them at all. After a bad game of tennis with Ganon, that is kind of boring in hindsight, it seems like he actually died, and so you and Zelda escape. But then after a lengthy escape scene with a lot of waiting, you will notice that Ganondorf isn't dead, and he even transforms into his beast form. However, before Link is able to swing his sword once, Ganon knocks it out of his hand, and so you need to resort to items in your inventory to deal damage. Now, most people choose to use the Big Goron sword, or the Megaton hammer if they hadn't completed that side quest. But there is another option, apparently. An item that you rarely use and seems quite harmless, but it does damage this borderline god, the Deku Nut, an item that acts like a primitive flashbang, which normally only stuns enemies instead of dealing damage. But, according to folks online, they hurt Ganon, so I gave it a shot. And weirdly enough, this is 100% true, even though it doesn't make much sense. Now, by the looks of it, these nuts don't do much damage, and you only have time to throw one before Ganon freaks out. So, I mean, it works, but it ain't the best choice. The Sheikah are a super mysterious tribe that was first introduced in Ocarina of Time, and while they are rarely seen, I mean, only Impa is a true Sheikah as far as I know, their presence is seen everywhere, with one thing being seen again and again, the Gossip Stones. Normally, these will just tell you the time, but if you wear the Mask of Truth, they will reveal secrets. So I don't think they were made for everyone's convenience, but as a way to spy on Hyrule's citizens. To be honest, they are a bit freaky. However, according to the internet, these statues have more powers. For example, if you play the Song of Storms in front of it, the Gossip Stone will create a big fairy. These are rarely seen in the game and are similar to normal fairies, but they don't have any wings and are much bigger. But do these really spawn when you play this song? Well, I tried it, and yeah, it does happen, which can be a handy way to farm some fairies. However, in the end, I have no idea where these come from and how any of this even works. Now, throughout the years, you hear a lot of weird claims about these old games, and so not all the myths on this list are new to me. And that is the case with this one as well, because I saw people online talk about the ultimate way to obtain free milk. All you do is go to Lon Lon Ranch, stand in front of a cow there, and play Epona's song. If you do this, the cow will become very excited and produces a bunch of milk, allowing you to fill a bottle. So I went there and did just that. And as you can see, this cow became really excited due to this song. And you can even do this multiple times. The cow just keeps giving and never becomes tired. So yeah, if you want free milk, this is the way. One thing that plays a surprisingly big role in this game is music. Without the Ocarina, Link would have been doomed. But it isn't just used to open doors, remove barriers, and teleport. You can also use it as a weapon to stun enemies, because the Sun Song can paralyze the Redeads, an enemy type that is incredibly tough and will be hard to deal with if they spot you. But does that really work? Well, I went down to the crypt found in the graveyard of Kakariko Village and entered the room filled with Redeads. And here I played the Sun Song to deal with all of them. As you can see, it stunned them. They turn white and they won't move for quite a long time, which is great for when you want to beat them or get past them without any hassle. So this one is actually very useful. Now clearly there are a number of secrets in the game that involve songs, and you just need to know where to play them for a special reward. And I heard of another little myth involving the Song of Storms, because apparently there's another magic object in the world that will reward you for playing it. If you stand in front of a magic bean and play the song, it will apparently grow like crazy and produces a lot of fairies. And I mean a lot. So yeah, I played the song to see what would happen. And at first, nothing happened. But luckily enough, I tried it with another, because it doesn't work when the rain can't touch it. And I ran into that problem when I tried this with the magic bean next to the entrance to the Dodongo Cavern. However, when I did this with the magic bean in Kakariko's graveyard, it did exactly what people said it would. The bean grew like crazy and produced 3 fairies, which is probably the best way to fill all your bottles with these buggers, aside from a fairy fountain of course. So yeah, this works. Now, even though I have played through Ocarina of Time multiple times, there are always things that I had never heard of. And this next claim is a great example of this, because according to folks on the internet, there are trees right outside of the spirit temple with nuts hanging from them, and if you shoot those, you will get a reward. Now, I was very skeptical of this, because as far as I could remember, there weren't even any trees close to the temple. So I teleported there and started looking for them, and while they weren't super close to the building, they do exist. These palm trees here have Deku nuts hanging from them, so I shot at them with my slingshot, and as you can see, you are rewarded for doing this. I got a blue rupee as well as some magic, but by the looks of it, you don't always get a reward from doing this, so I am glad that I tried it multiple times, but in the end, this one is true. Around 2 weeks ago, we made a myth-busting video all about Majora's Mask, the sequel of this game, and in it we attempted to fix a sign using the Song of Healing. Now, after that video went live, I started to read the comments, because I always do this the first couple of days. And when I did this, I came across comments that kept saying I have to do the same thing in Ocarina of Time using Zelda's Lullaby. So I went to the well in Kakariko Village, cut it into pieces, and played the song. Now at first, I wasn't sure if it actually worked. But then a bit later the sign was fixed. However, I was confused why it took ages, until I saw that the sign fell into the well. So yeah, it took a while for it to come back up. However, as you can clearly see, this does work, but it doesn't make much sense. In Majora's Mask, the Song of Healing fixes things. For example, it's used to lift curses and put spirits to rest. However, Zelda's Lullaby does none of this. So why does it fix signs? Who knows? Many of the Zelda staples were first seen in Ocarina of Time. Really, it walked so that the later games could run. And the Gerudo were also seen for the first time in this title. And ever since then, they have been in countless games. However, while they are friendly in the more modern titles, they were hostile in Ocarina of Time, which was actually a lot of fun. When you're an adult, you need to infiltrate their base, free prisoners, and win their respect. Now, once you did all of this, you could walk around the place without any problems, allowing you to explore. And apparently you can find loot in some odd places, because the cauldrons have red rupees inside of them. So I went there and jumped into the boiling pot to see if I could find anything. And yeah, there is money inside of them, for some reason. Also, getting out of this pot was much harder than I expected. But hey, worth it, I guess. When you're a child, Kokiri Forest is a lot more fun. There aren't loads of monsters that try to kill you, and almost everyone is friendly. But as soon as you become an adult, oh boy, everyone and everything tries to kill you regardless of your behavior. Now sure, this is also due to the death of the Great Deku Tree, but even creatures that were nice before, normally they just play music on their flute. But when adult Link shows up, they will use this flute to shoot pellets or nuts at you. Now as soon as this happens, most people would just leave them alone, but they drop insane amounts of money, so killing them is actually worth it. And I saw online that using fire arrows is actually super effective because it instantly takes care of them. So I tried this. However, something odd happened. This Skull Kid did a sick backflip and disappeared. Clearly this doesn't work. And worst of all, he is gone now, so you can't get the money. So far, we have looked at a number of ways to farm fairies, and I got one last method that we need to test. One that requires patience. According to the internet, you can turn a butterfly into a fairy using nothing more than a Deku stick. All you have to do is find a butterfly in the world and make it follow your stick, which can be a bit tricky because you have to go slowly. So I did exactly that. And yeah, it really works. But again, why? How does this happen? Why does this happen? Who found out about this originally, and why did they try this? Who knows? These are all questions that will never be answered. Now this next claim is wild. When I came across it, I immediately added it to the list, because man, this one is too good. In the game there are a bunch of bosses, and while most aren't that hard, there's one that can be a bit tricky. Bongo Bongo. A weird ghost or demon that will attack you with its floating hands like he is Rayman, and these attacks can be hard to dodge. Now usually people solve this problem by getting out of the way or timing spin attacks, but there is a third option. I saw someone use the ice arrow to freeze his hands. This way he can't hit you with them for some time. So I did this. And yeah, as you can see right here, it is frozen solid. And the other hand will try to break the ice. But sadly enough, you can't freeze the other one as well. And while this does work, it doesn't really help you in winning the fight, because you have to hit his hands for his body to drop down. Well, it looks like it doesn't work at least. So cool, but not as useful as you would think. One Easter egg that is seen in every Zelda game is the Cuccos who will hunt you down and kill you as soon as you attack one of them. For some reason, this whips them into a crazy frenzy, and loads of them will appear out of nowhere and start flying at you. Now, as far as I know, there's only one way to escape their wrath. Enter a house or a new area, but that's about it. But then I saw that there's another option, and once again, Zelda's lullaby was involved, because if you play the song, they will stop. Now, after seeing it fix signs, I was convinced that it would work. But when I was being attacked by them and I tried it, nothing happened. They still came after me, no matter what I did. I even tried this multiple times, but they kept coming. So yeah, this claim is 100% false. Sure, this song can fix signs, but calming down chickens? Well, that's a completely different story. One criticism of Ocarina of Time that is valid in my opinion is that a lot of the fights involve insane amounts of waiting. The Wolfos is a great example. Most of the time you just stand there and do nothing until he shows his back to you. So is there a way to speed up some of the fight scene in the game? Well, yes. Apparently you can uproot a Deku Scrub using the Megaton Hammer, and these can also take too much time to beat, making this claim an interesting solution for my problems. So I went into the Lost Woods to find a Deku Scrub, and in this grotto I found this fellow, who started shooting at me immediately. In response I ran towards him, and he started hiding in his little flower. So I tried to use the Megaton Hammer to get him out, and this worked! He popped out immediately, and I struck him down. Now of course he surrendered, and even offered me arrows, but that's besides the point. As you can see, this claim is true. In Kakariko Village, you will find a small house that looks abandoned, but as soon as you enter it, you will find a bunch of Skulltulas. But they aren't just normal Skulltulas. These creatures are cursed Hylians, and you can free them from this by killing the gold Skulltulas that are found around the world. And doing so is totally worth it, because they give you some amazing rewards for helping them out. But I saw people claim that you can actually kill them just like the normal Skulltulas seen in the game. All you need to do is hit them from behind where they have a weak spot. So I tried this. Now, it stunned them, they turned blue, and spun around to punish me. However, it didn't kill them. So while you can mess with them, it is impossible to take them out, no matter which weapon or item you use. Now, one way you can make an Ocarina of Time playthrough harder is by not getting any bottles and skipping all the consumables in the entire game. This way you only have one shot at most fights that you encounter. However, there's another way to spice it up, because apparently you can drink Poes that you have in any of your bottles, and these will either heal you or damage you. So it's a bit of a gamble, but is this really in the game? Well, I went to the Kakariko graveyard and captured a few ghosts, but as soon as I started drinking them, them, which is possible, and that blew my mind, I only took damage. So I thought that these couldn't heal you. But then after drinking loads of them, one finally healed me. I mean, it wasn't much, but still. Now, to be honest, losing or gaining a heart is nothing big, but it could spice up a playthrough because gambling is fun. And as you can see, it did replenish all of my magic. So yeah, this claim is true. In the previous video, we used some clever tricks to spawn a giant fairy, a being that you rarely see in the game. And unlike a normal fairy, these ones also fill your magic meter, which is pretty handy. But after seeing this, Lise Ham said, "I'm pretty sure that those can't be caught in a bottle." Now after reading this, I started thinking, had I ever done that or even tried to do that before? Well, as far as I could remember, no. So I attempted it. First, I emptied my bottle and spawned in a giant fairy using the technique that we covered in the previous video. And then, I tried to imprison it. But each time I swung my bottle, nothing really happened. I couldn't capture it. So by the looks of it, Lise Ham was right. This doesn't work. Maybe because this fairy is too big to fit in a bottle? However, as far as I know, Link doesn't care about ethics anyways when trapping these beings in a bottle. So who knows why this is impossible. After freeing the carpenters from the evil Gerudo, you're allowed to run around in their fortress without getting into trouble. And most people will explore the place at this point, because there's no need to hide after all. Now last time I was told to check out this big cauldron here, because it had some sort of secret prize. But now someone has made an even crazier claim. Wicked said that if you jumped into it and swiped your bottle through it, you would get a potion from it. Now when I read this, it instantly captured my attention, and I just had to try it. So I traveled there and jumped into this pot right away. But when I attempted to fill my bottle, nothing happened. It just didn't work. So I got out of it because I almost died as well. So yeah, Wicked, this isn't true whatsoever. Which is disappointing because it would have been great to get free potions here. We've all seen a game crash before. Sometimes it can be fun because you didn't expect it and it looks crazy, while other times it is terrible because you forgot to save and lost loads of progress. But most of us rarely try to make a game crash on purpose. But today, we will be doing exactly that. Because according to Ebony, it is quite simple to do. All you need is an adult Dodongo and some bomb chews. The only thing you do is feed this dinosaur one of these bombs, and then it will crash. So I went into Dodongo Cavern, found one, and tried to feed it a bomb chew. When I did this, not much happened. So I thought to myself, this was another fake claim. But then, the magic happened. The game clearly soft-locked, and to be honest, I have no idea at all why it did this. But I had to try this again to be sure. So I went back and did it again. And by the looks of it, the timing is a bit tricky, because the bomb chew needs to hit him just as he starts to inhale. If you do that, it will 100% crash. So what Ebony said is true, but yeah, it isn't really useful. And the tip of saving before attempting to do this is certainly a good one. Cuccos are vindictive sons of hens. If you mess with them by hitting one, they will come after you with intent to kill. But is there a way to survive one of their attacks aside from fleeing by entering a new area or a building? Well, Erin had a fun tip to become immune, and you just need Epona, because when you're on top of her, the Cuccos can't hurt you. So I went to Lon Lon Ranch to piss off some chickens to see what would happen as soon as they come for me. And as you can see, these Cuccos aren't that smart, because they go too low and hit Epona's legs. But she doesn't care, and meanwhile Link is completely fine. Now as soon as I got off, I was screwed and got hit multiple times. But as soon as I get back on Epona, I am fine again. So yeah, this is the perfect way to survive one of the deadliest creatures seen in the Zelda universe, without much effort as well. In the previous myth-busting video, I complained for a hot second about the combat scene in Ocarina of Time, because while it is amazing and revolutionized the world of 3D games by introducing things like Z-targeting, it wasn't perfect. You often had to wait for an opening, which is something later games got rid of mostly. For example, in the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, it's seen a lot less, but according to folks in the comment section, items like the Deku Nuts can help speed up a lot of these fights. And Gino said that they can even be used to make Poes visible again, whether you Z-target them or not. But quite quickly, they will become invisible again. Now this sounds great. It cuts down on the waiting time and allows me to strike right away. So I went to the graveyard of Kakariko village and messed with some tombstones to find a Poe. As you can see, one appeared because I disturbed its grave, and it immediately went invisible. So I started throwing Deku nuts to see if it would do anything. But the answer is no. Nothing happened as far as I can see. It only affected the Poe when it was visible. It actually did the exact opposite of what Gino said. So yeah, this claim is clearly false. Ah, the Gerudo Desert. Beautiful, isn't it?
I don't like sand. It's coarse, and rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Anyway, we are not here for sightseeing. We are actually here to test a big claim that I didn't believe at all. Because Wicked had another myth. He said that if you play the Song of Storms next to this empty pond that is found just outside of the Spirit Temple, it will fill up due to the rain and fairies will pop out. Now this sounded too good to be true, which made me skeptical. But it also sounded like a classic Ocarina of Time secret, which made me hopeful. So yeah, at that point, I had to try it. Luckily enough, getting there is quite easy with a warp song. Now when I arrived, I just stood next to the pond and played the Song of Storms to see if Wicked was right. And at first, it didn't work. I played the song and nothing happened. But then during the editing process, my editor did some more research and found out that it can actually be done. But by the looks of it, it is only possible once. And someone already did this in the save file that I used, so I couldn't do it again. However, it can be done. The Sheikah stones. They stare at you no matter where you are, always looking, and in the end, we have no idea why. They are odd to say the least, and in these videos we have already experimented a bit with them because they are clearly magical and weird. And today we will once again try something to see how they will react. Because Matt said that you can flatten them using the Megaton hammer, but this doesn't make much sense. It is made of stone, so it should break and not flatten, even though it has a weird wobble when you hit it. So I gave it a shot. Now after finding one and giving it a good smack, I could see that it did flatten. And after some time, it sprung back up again. So by the looks of it, this thing is not made of stone. It behaves more like rubber. It is unlike anything else in the game. But all of this at least shows that Matt was right. In the first video, we looked into multiple secrets and strange ways to summon fairies, and most of them actually worked. But after that video, Thomas made a claim in the comment section that you can farm fairies almost anywhere. According to him, there are unexpected locations where Navi will fly to and turn green, indicating that you can play a song here such as Zelda's Lullaby, Epona song, or the Song of Storms for a fairy. Now, I had heard of this before, but never really used this information in one of my playthroughs. So I had no idea where I had to go in order to test this. So I did some research first, and I found out that if you play the Sun Song here in Gerudo's Fortress, a fairy should spawn in. And yeah, as you can see, this worked. This could be super useful if you know about it. So I think the next time I play through Ocarina of Time, I will take advantage of this. Sometimes developers make a mistake and forget about something, and usually this is not a big deal. And of course, things like this can also be found in Ocarina of Time, with a quite famous one being seen in Gerudo Fortress. Mud said if you manage to get to Gerudo Valley as a child, which requires either glitches or cheats, you can find a heart piece that is normally unobtainable. And when I was there to test some other myths, I decided to check this out as well. And yeah, an extra heart piece can be found here, which is very odd because I already had 20 hearts. And now I just have an extra heart piece which does nothing for me. So the claim is true, but why is it here? Well, as you can imagine, many people online started theorizing why it can be found here. And many of them think you were supposed to go here as a child, but due to time constraints, it was scrapped. However, in the end, we have no idea why it is here. But it is clear that at some point you were supposed to come here as a child, because it's only seen here as a child. But in the end, Nintendo changed course, and so only adult Link ends up going to Gerudo Fortress. Meanwhile, child Link only comes into play once you finally arrive at the Spirit Temple. During the final battle with the literal incarnation of evil, you are disarmed, and so you are forced to fall back on the items in your inventory. Now, most people will use the Big Goron sword or the Megaton hammer, but what about the hookshot? An item that isn't known for its offensive capabilities. Well, according to Tyrant, you can actually use it in a fight, because it stuns Ganon if you shoot him in the face. Now, this is something I had never heard of, so I went to Ganon's castle, played a bit of tennis, which was surprisingly difficult due to the crazy input lag, and escaped so I could face his beast form. As soon as the fight started, I whipped out my hookshot and shot him right between the eyes, which did affect him. He shook his head and did nothing for a hot second, but after that, he started swinging his sword again. However, if you're fast enough, you can even prevent him from attacking. So as you can see, it does work, but it isn't the most effective option out there. Aside from that, I also found out you can attack his tail with the hookshot, and combining this with the stun was actually pretty effective, although I bet it would take ages to defeat him this way. And we are back in the desert. Really, this whole episode is filled with Gerudo desert myths and claims. It's crazy. Now this time we are here to test a simple one. Zoran said that the hover boots will allow you to walk on the quicksand without sinking and eventually disappearing into it. Now me and birdkeeper Toby, who I was calling with while recording this, had completely forgotten about the quicksand that is seen almost everywhere in the desert. I mean, it isn't a huge threat after all. But aside from that, I still had to test this myth. So I went to the haunted wasteland to see if it would work. First, I stood there with my normal boots on, and as you can see, I started to go down slowly. So I put on the hover boots to see if it would prevent me from sinking lower. I instantly popped back up and didn't sink into the sand, which made moving around a lot easier and faster as well. Clearly, the claim is true, and it's also super useful. Gear like swords, shields, and other things breaking is completely normal nowadays in the Legend of Zelda games. And while many hate it, I get why it was introduced with the open world of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But it isn't actually new. We have seen it before. For example, in Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, your shield will break if it catches fire. Really, it is quite hard to keep the Ordon shield throughout the game. But Neko said that the Hylian Shield can also break. Now, when I read this, I had my doubts. It's made out of real deal steel. Sure, the Kokiri shield is gone in a matter of seconds when fire is introduced, but the Hylian shield? Nah. But still, I tried to break this thing, and this Beamos was the perfect stress test. So I blocked all of its laser shots with my shield for 5 minutes straight. And you gotta remember, this shield has taken damage before as well. But even after this torture test, it was fine, which I already expected. So sorry, Neko, this just isn't true. Nothing can beat the Hylian Shield. Well, in Ocarina of Time at least. I do not care for achievements, collectibles, and other stuff like that. Really, no matter the game. But some folks live for that stuff. They will try to get their hands on everything and anything, even if it's just cosmetic or a number on the screen. And of course, collectibles are also seen in Ocarina of Time, with the gold Skulltulas being the best example. And the rewards are also pretty good. And Lady Luthine told me that there's a secret way of creating an infinite amount of gold Skulltulas out of thin air. First, you have to go to the grotto outside of Hyrule Castle and go inside of it. Here, you stand close to the war portal, kill the spider, grab the token with the boomerang, and immediately backflip out. If you do this correctly, the game will add the token to the counter, but when you re-enter the grotto, the gold Skulltula is still there. So you can do this forever until you have 100, which is much easier than collecting them all. Now, the file I used for testing has completed everything, so I couldn't easily test this. So I started looking online to see if this is true. And yes, it is. My good friends over at Zelda Universe even uploaded a guide for this 11 years ago. So this trick is also really old. Now, if you still need to farm those pesky spiders, then give this a shot, because it's super effective. This is a Cucco.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
A harmless animal until you start to mess with it. And so far, we've already experimented a bit with them in this video. And while there are ways to escape their wrath, for example by using Epona, can specific items help as well? Maybe. Slayflay suggested that Nayru's love might do the job. This spell surrounds Link's body with a blue diamond-shaped barrier, which lasts exactly for 1 minute. And its effect is simple. It prevents you from taking damage no matter what attacks you, but it does not stop recoil from enemy attacks. So what happens if you use this when the Cuccos attack you? Well, as you can see right here, you don't take any damage. And this was great for a while, because at some point the effects wear off, but the Cuccos aren't done yet. So sure, it allows you to maybe escape, but aside from that, it does very little for you, because these feathered demons will still come for you. If you've ever played Ocarina of Time, then you know that the Gerudo Desert section of the game is a bit odd. You can't enter as a kid, only once you're an adult. But as soon as you arrive at the Spirit Temple, you notice you have to be a kid again. So it's a confusing back and forth which Nintendo probably tinkered with a lot. That's also why a secret extra heart piece can be found there. But apparently more can be found here, because the odd mushroom, which is part of a long side quest, is also here for some reason. Well, according to Blue Shell Incident at least. So I went there once again, and using cheats, I got to the Gerudo Fortress and looked around for this thing. Now I ended up finding the chest that it's in, but for some reason, it was already opened. But normally, it can be found right here. So the claim is true, but for some reason, someone opened this chest before uploading the save file so people like me could use it for testing. Which is a bit weird, but that doesn't matter. Now this next claim is kind of crazy, because it could finally solve a problem that I have been dealing with for ages. I really despise the Keese enemy that is found in all the dungeons and caves seen in the game. They will fly at you as soon as they see you, and man oh man, I hate these so much, because dealing with them is just hell. But apparently there's a way to avoid dealing with them, because this commenter said that Keese won't bother you if you have the skull mask on. Now this sounded too good to be true, so I had my doubts, but I was hopeful, because again, I would give anything to get rid of these pesky bats. So I went to Dodongo Cavern and confronted these 3 Keese with the mask on as well as off to see if there would be any difference. And the answer is yes. They do swarm around, but won't fly towards you to attack. So yeah, they leave you alone. But as soon as I take the mask off, they go nuts again. So the claim is true, and I will certainly remember it. Sometimes the developers of video games forget about certain things they were supposed to get rid of. I mean, the Gerudo Desert is a perfect example of this. But apparently something can also be found at Ganon's castle, because some folks said that the side of the castle can be grabbed onto with the hookshot, allowing you to clip into it. Which sounded kind of crazy, but hey, it was quite easy to test, so I tried to do it. And yeah, you can actually clip into the castle this way. For some reason, this stuff can be grabbed onto with the hookshot, which makes no sense at all, and must have been a mistake. Sadly enough, it isn't really useful. The whole inside of the castle is not rendered, so you will just fall into the lava below if you walk forward. Now, many minigames seen in Ocarina of Time require skill to win. You gotta be good with a bow or need good timing. But there's one that becomes incredibly easy as soon as you have a certain item. I'm talking about the chest minigame, which is child's play as soon as you have the Lens of Truth, because with it you can see exactly what's inside of it. However, I saw that Duke claimed that you can never win this game without the Lens of Truth, because it's rigged. But then I saw others say that this was false, and while it is hard, you can actually win the game if you're lucky. Now at that point, I had to test this one. I mean, this discussion can't go on forever. We need an answer. So I went there and attempted to win. And while I never managed to finish, I saw online that others were able to pull it off. For example, YouTuber Long Plays of Evil managed to do it, but it did take him 28 attempts. However, this does show that it is possible. We have been bullying Cuccos for a while now, but during all of this chicken-related testing, I thought to myself, do they ever stop? I mean, I saw some people in the comments claim that they will stop at some point, it just takes a while. Now, I didn't believe this. As far as I could remember, they go on forever until you enter a new area or a building. So I just attacked one of them, triggering their murder reflex, and at that point, I just waited. Now, I did die, but I came back due to a fairy, and then I died again. All of this took more than 8 minutes, and as far as I can see, they will never stop. So yeah, Cuccos won't ever calm down, even though that is a thing in later titles. Originally, I was gonna look at a myth involving Twin Rova, but sadly enough, I couldn't get my hands on a save file that hadn't defeated them yet, but was still close to the Spirit Temple. Because I mean, if I had to completely replay these games each time I wanted to do a myth-busting video, it would take 3 times as long to release these videos. But when I was looking for a new myth to cover, I came up with an idea. During the Twin Rova fight, you can deflect their attacks. But can you do this with other attacks as well? Who knows? So I tried to deflect the laser of Abimos when I was there to torture test the Hylian Shield. However, the mirror shield did nothing at all, even though it can deflect these fire and ice beams, which doesn't make much sense to me, and I'm a bit sad that this isn't possible, because it could have been a cool move. But hey, what can you do about it? One thing that we have been covering more and more in these videos is odd glitches and tricks. So of course we have to start off this video with one, because Cecil claimed that you can change the color of Link's gauntlets. Normally these are red, gold or silver depending on your items, but with a little trick you can change their color, and depending on your strength upgrade they can be 4 different colors: black, green, blue and purple. But can this really be done? Well yes, but it is a bit precise. You need certain items and upgrades. As far as I could find in my research, you need the seed bag upgrade, silver scale but not the gold one, a bottle with a fish, a pocket Cucco, 0 Deku sticks, and only the wallet that can hold up to 200 rupees. Now to perform this trick you need to complete a number of steps. You need to have certain items on specific C buttons, you need to perform a glitch where you steal the fishing rod, swim in water, and perform a weird version of the glitch called Ocarina items. Really, it is an odd and convoluted trick, but it does really work. But I have no idea why your gauntlets change color if you do this. It even affects other things. For example, you lose the seed bag, the description for some items is in Japanese now, and more. So yeah, this is 100% real, and performing this glitch is a lot more complicated than I expected. Because I had heard of it before, but I never expected all of this. In a lot of the early 3D Zelda games, Nintendo went for a very linear approach, because it allows for some amazing game design. Every time you play Ocarina of Time, you basically do the same thing again and again. But as time went on, players tried to get around this. Especially speedrunners loved looking for ways to sequence break or to skip certain barriers. And Fune told me about a rather simple skip that can be done at Zora's domain. All you need is a Cucco and a bit of skill. With the chicken in hand, you have to jump from the left side along the wall right into the entrance of Zora's domain. This way you can skip Zelda's lullaby completely. But can this be done? There must be an invisible wall, right? Well no, the game has no internal flag for this, and the only thing stopping you is the waterfall. And using this trick you can easily bypass it and sneak into Zora's domain a lot earlier than you're supposed to. As Fune said, this one is super easy, and I gotta say, I love it. Like I have mentioned in some other videos, there are myths and claims out there that aren't really new to me, and this is one of them. Wicked Zombie said that the Deku Stick is actually one of the most powerful items in the game, doing the same damage as the Master Sword. This can make it a useful tool when fighting some of the early bosses you encounter, although they do break after one hit. But does this really work? Oh, 1000% yes, and I've used this in some of my later playthroughs. Heck, I even had to replay the beginning of the game for this video, and I used the Deku Stick to get rid of Goma in record time. So yes, Wicked is right. But overall, this isn't a huge mystery, and most Zelda fans already know about it. Normally for these videos, I don't completely replay the game to test all these myths, because man oh man, that would take away too much time, and I gotta be a bit efficient here. So usually I grab a save file online and use that, but for once, I decided to start a new save file to test one myth, because Xun-kun claimed that you can do something fun with the Saria song cutscene by dropping a fish right before triggering it. So I went through the Great Deku Tree, visited Zelda, got myself a fish at Zora's domain, and went to Saria. All of this took quite a long time, even though I could do it all blind, so I really hoped that at least something would happen. So I dropped the fish and went in. But did something happen? Well yes, as you can see, for some reason, there's now a fish on her lap, and I have no idea why. Is this a glitch? Was this intentional? Who knows? But aside from this, there were no differences. However, still, I had never seen this before, and it was worth all the hassle. I originally thought that the masks in this game were only useful for getting the Mask of Truth, but while making these videos I found out that you can also use them for other things. I mean, some of them are super useful. So far the Skull Mask is the best, because some enemies will ignore you completely when you wear it. And Jason Wheeler said that it even prevents the Gways, which he calls crows, from attacking you. So I went to Lon Lon Ranch, where a whole swarm of them can be found at night, which is something I never really noticed, to test Jason's claim. Now within seconds I had multiple Gways diving down chasing me. So I put on the mask to see their reaction, and boom, they left me alone immediately, and no others came after me. But as soon as I took the mask off, I was in for hell again. So clearly the mask is key, which means that this claim is true. Right before you fight Ganondorf, you have to free the sages, and in order to reach them you need to beat specific challenges that are fitting for the specific sage kept there. Overall these aren't too difficult, but according to Games for You, there's one little trick that can make the fire trial a whole lot easier. When you enter you will see that the platforms here slowly sink into the lava, just like we saw in the fire temple. But if you wear the hover boots then they will stay exactly where they are, making this whole trial a lot easier. When I read this, I immediately wanted to try it, and as soon as I stepped on one of the platforms, I could see that this worked. But I decided to experiment a bit as well. Will the hover boots work if you equip them after standing on it? Well, no. It will continue to sink into the lava, and as you can see, it doesn't work for all the platforms found here. So while this is a neat trick, it isn't perfect. Now in many ways, Ocarina of Time is a bit of a mess. Sure, it's a great game that pushed the boundaries and it still holds up very well, but it does have some issues. 20 FPS on native hardware isn't some grand flex after all, but still, regardless of the limitations, Nintendo added all kinds of fun details. Like the Stalchildren found at Hyrule Field that only become bigger and bigger as you kill more of them. Although I will admit, bigger enemies don't necessarily tax hardware more, but apparently this isn't the only example of a bigger enemy spawning over time. Joey said that if you kill the levers found in Gerudo Desert, then at some point a bigger version will spawn. Now when I heard this, I went there right away and started killing. And in no time a bigger, differently colored lever spawned. And to my surprise, this version is also much tougher, which doesn't happen with the Stalchildren. So it took a bit of effort to take it down. However, the loot it dropped was quite insane. 3 red rupees is a lot of money for one enemy. So yeah, this claim is true, and also pretty cool. Some of the enemies you encounter in the game are absolute cowards. They will attack from a distance and hide when you try to come close. Good examples of this are the Deku Scrub and Octorok, but they do have one weakness, aside from using a ranged weapon on them. You can deflect their projectiles back at them with your shield, which is exactly what most people do, but Elliot claimed that while the mirror shield is great, it cannot deflect these attacks. Now when I read this, I didn't believe it. All the other shields have this simple ability, so the superior mirror shield must be able to do it as well, right? Well, when I tried it, I quickly noticed that this thing was worthless. It doesn't work at all, so Elliot was right, which means that the Hylian Shield is still useful later on in the game. So the next time a like steals it, then getting it back might be a good idea. In the last 2 videos, we've seen how insane the Cuccos can be when they go on a murder spree. Really, you don't want to mess with them. But now, Drake Baku has asked me to take it all to the next level by pissing them off and then sitting on Epona to see how long they would continue to attack me. I have tried 8 minutes before, but now I was gonna go twice as long. So I went to Lon Lon Ranch, jumped on Epona, and shot some Cuccos until they went ballistic. At that point, I just sat there. Meanwhile, I left my desk and went downstairs to make some lunch, exactly like Drake suggested. So this was also pretty time efficient for me. And then 16 minutes later, I came back. Now as you can see, the Cuccos were still coming after me, so at this point I am quite certain that they will attack you forever. But hey, maybe I should let it run for hours next time. My editor will love to deal with a massive file like that. Usually all of the claims and myths we look at in one of these videos come from the comments of older videos. I mean, I want to cover the stuff that all of you want to see. But for number 7, we will try something that my editor suggested. Could the hover boots help when walking on ice, which causes you to slip and slide all over the place? I mean, maybe. We've already seen it work on things like platforms that are supposed to slowly sink into lava, so let's try it here. Now, as you can see, it actually doesn't help at all, because I might not be going all over the place due to the ice, but the hover boots have a similar effect, so I'm still struggling a bit with movement. In the end, this does nothing. I might as well just walk on ice with normal boots. Speedrunning Zelda games is incredibly popular, and for years people have been experimenting in Ocarina of Time to make any type of run faster and more efficient. And Matt said that you can actually skip a portion of the Fire Temple, the Rolling Rock Maze to be specific, by using the hookshot and scarecrow. Now I know a lot about Zelda speedrunning, especially the strategies that were seen from 2016 to 2019, but I had never heard of this. So I bet that this trick is quite old and isn't used in runs anymore. I mean, routes are constantly evolving after all. Due to this, I had to do some research, and after some looking around, I found a video of someone performing this trick, so it is 100% real. By placing the scarecrow here, you can immediately access this elevator, which is much faster than the original way of doing this section. So I gotta say, this is a cool little trick that I had never seen or heard of before. Like I said before, while Ocarina of Time is a great game, it runs terribly on native hardware, struggling to hold an acceptable frame rate at certain sections. Due to this, the game can crash when you start to mess with it. And in the previous video, we looked at one way to break the game, and now we will look at another. Once again, Xun-kun had a claim. Apparently, if you go to the mirror room in the Spirit Temple, you can crash the game if you kill the white bubbles found there with Din's fire. So after looking around, I found a room and tried to break the game. But I just killed the bubbles and everything was fine. This was a bit disappointing to me, however I did notice something. The game's frame rate slowed down drastically when I entered this room, and only after that I used Din's fire to kill these bubbles. So I decided to do it again when the game was already struggling with the enemies on screen. This resulted in a major crash. The game just couldn't handle everything that was going on, so it failed. Which means that this claim is 100% true, and to be honest, it doesn't surprise me at all that the game buckles under the weight here. So far, we've looked at a number of weird anomalies seen in this game, with glitches leading to the weirdest scenarios. But apparently, there's one that I haven't covered yet that I should, because according to JJ Gone Insane, you can quite easily send a Tektite to outer space. He said if you flip the Tektite with the Megaton Hammer and then push it back into the water using the hookshot, it will flip back up and fly away. Now, when I read this, I was very excited to try it. I mean, it sounds bonkers after all. So I ran to Lake Hylia, located a Tektite, and attempted to trigger this glitch. After messing around for a bit, I was able to pull it off, and man oh man, I wasn't disappointed, because the effect was crazy. The Tektite immediately shoots up into the air, and eventually just disappears. So it never ever comes back down. Now I had never witnessed this before, but I bet that this is a rather well-known and old glitch. But still, it was fun to give it a shot in the video. In these videos, we always cover a wide range of things, weird claims, glitches, and handy tips. And because this game is quite old, you sometimes come across suggestions in the comments that you have heard of before. For example, Fune said that you can freeze the moving spikes that you find in dungeons, like the Water Temple or Ice Cavern. Now, as far as I remember, this is possible. But still, I decided to test it anyway, because it wouldn't take that much time to do so. So, when I was running around in Ganon's castle, I shot these moving spike traps. And as you can see, it works, which makes sections like this stupid easy, but I bet that most of you hardcore Ocarina of Time fans knew all about this already. When I was recording this video, I had to run across Hyrule Field dozens of times, and I often got stuck out there during the night. So I had to fight the Stalchildren that started spawning until the sun comes back up so I could enter Hyrule Castle Town. Although sometimes I just used the Sun Song. But then I thought to myself, could an item in the game help with this? For example, the skull mask that you can get in Hyrule Castle Town? Well, maybe, just maybe, they will leave me alone like the Gways that we saw at Lon Lon Ranch. So I grabbed the mask again, waited for the Stalchildren, and equipped the mask to see what would happen. Sadly enough, I immediately noticed that they still chase and attack me. So yeah, that wasn't a good start. But there was another thing that I could try. Would they still spawn with the mask on? Well, again, yes. They clearly don't care about the mask and aren't fooled by it. Alright, this next claim is kind of crazy. When I read it, I was intrigued, but also incredibly skeptical. Because KitKat said that there's actually a Nintendo gallery, similar to the one seen in the Wind Waker, in Ocarina of Time. His mum swears by it, and said that this secret can be found behind a cracked wall, seen in the fishing hole. She remembers getting the Picto box here, and submitting a photo of King Dodongo. However, there's a problem. You cannot bomb this wall. Even KitKat acknowledges this. So, can you get past it? Now, this is a bit much, but still I wanted to investigate all of this to see if it could be true. And luckily enough, I can use cheats to explore out of bounds. Now when I did this, I quickly saw that there's nothing behind this cracked wall. No loading zone or Nintendo gallery. So clearly this claim is false, which I already expected. However, now I'm curious, where did his mum get the idea from? Who knows? This next myth is a bit, weird, I guess. Because it doesn't make much sense, and if it's true, then the developers of Ocarina of Time might have a dirtier mind than I ever expected. Because Xun Kun said that you can use the hookshot on the nipples of the big statue that is found inside of the Spirit Temple. Which makes no sense at all, because doing so doesn't help you progress through the dungeon. But, does it work? Well, I went to the temple and tried to shoot my shot, and to my surprise, it stuck. You can actually use the hookshot on it, although you need to be a bit precise. Only a small part of it works. However, why oh why did Nintendo add this? There's no clear reason. Is it really just in the game because the developers are heathens? Well, I think we will never get a real answer. Man oh man, we have experimented a lot with the skull mask, and we aren't done yet. Because Tira said that the spooky mask glows at night. Now I will say this comment is a bit vague. I wasn't sure whether to use the skull or spooky mask. I mean, this person could be talking about either of the two. So I just decided to use both of them. First I tried the skull mask because I already had that one. And quite quickly I saw that this didn't work. The mask didn't emit light and it had no glow to it. So I went back to Castle Town and borrowed the spooky mask. Now when I used this one, I saw something interesting. The mask seemed to glow, but it looked a bit off. I wasn't sure if it was a true glow, or if it's just the natural look of the mask, which makes it stand out during the night. So I put it on during daytime, and I could see that it always looks like this. So while it might look like a glow, it isn't really, which means that this claim is plausible. This next myth is fascinating, because while it's short and simple, I was curious what the outcome would be. Now all of the people who've watched the other videos will know that this boiling cauldron found in the Gerudo Fortress does quite a bit of damage when you stand in it, which was a bit of a problem when testing other myths. However, Pink Phoenix wondered, could you avoid taking damage if you wear the red tunic? Well, no idea, but it is a good suggestion, because that set is designed for surviving heat. So I put it on and jumped in. At first I was fine. By the looks of it, I couldn't be hurt at all. But then I took damage. I mean, it wasn't much, but still. So by the looks of it, you still take damage, but a lot more slowly. So the tunic does protect you to an extent, which means that this claim is plausible, I guess. One thing I have always liked about the Zelda games is their characters. Many of them are wacky, unique, or mysterious, which makes them memorable. I mean, all of you know about Tingle, Sheik, and Dampé, just to name a few. And for our final myth, we will be talking about the last character I just mentioned, the Gravekeeper of Kakariko Village. Because you can scare him with the Keaton mask. Well, that's what Matt claims at least, although I am very skeptical. He said, just wear the mask and and then run around Dampé in circles, and after that he will hide in a shack because he's scared of you. Now I didn't believe this, and when I tried it, my suspicions were proven to be true. This does nothing. However, what about the other masks? Well, the skull mask did nothing. He was a lot more scared of the kitten mask, oddly enough. But what about the spooky mask? So I tried the spooky mask, and again, he saw right through the disguise and wasn't scared at all. Which means that he finds the kitten mask, a mask made for kids, the scariest out of all of them. Aside from that, I would say that this claim is false, because like you saw, Dampé doesn't flee. Money. You love it, I love it, everyone loves it. And of course, you also need this stuff when playing through Ocarina of Time. And so far, people have suggested multiple ways of making money in the game. Some of them worked, while others didn't. But when I was going through the comments, I saw that Mason made a rather bold claim. He said that you can sell fish to this guy in Hyrule Castle Town for an insane amount of money, 200 rupees a piece. Meanwhile, catching fish is super easy, so this could be a good way to farm money early on in the game. Due to this, I had to try it. So I grabbed a fish and went over to the guy who was very eager to buy anything I showed him. Now, when I presented the fish, he wanted to buy it, but he only offered me 100 rupees, which is still a good amount of money. So in a way, this claim is true, but he offers less than Mason claimed. It could be that he confused it with the price seen in shops in Hyrule Castle Town, but still 100 rupees is good money. Usually I get all the ideas for these videos from the comments, but at times my editor also comes up with ideas, and last time he suggested that I should try to use the hover boots on ice. However, this wasn't very successful, but Super Luigi said that I should try it again, but this time I had to wear the iron boots, because those would prevent me from slipping and sliding around. So I put on the boots while I was in Zora's domain and walked around on the ice to see what would happen. And yeah, I could walk around like normal. Sure, I was slow due to the heavy boots, but Super Luigi was right. So if you really don't want to deal with the classic ice physics, then the iron boots are your best choice. Cuccos are relentless. They will hunt you down no matter what, and after doing loads of testing, we've figured out that they really are diehards. But some folks like Death Sentence claim that there are specific places where you can hide from them, and they will leave you alone if you wait a bit. Now, I didn't believe this at all. I have seen the Cuccos hunt me down for 15 minutes straight, even though they couldn't hit me. And even if you die, they will continue to attack. So I was quite certain that this wouldn't work. But still, I gave it a shot. All I had to do was hide below the log bridge seen near Gerudo Valley. So I pissed off a Cucco and hid underneath it. When I did this, Cuccos were still coming for me. But then, out of nowhere, they stopped. Which, confused me a bit. Usually, they will hunt you down until you leave the area. So by the looks of it, Death Sentence was right. You can escape their wrath in this one spot, and I have no idea why. Now, while we tend to cover weird claims and myths in these videos, we also look at glitches from time to time, but only if they are a bit obscure and unbelievable. And today we will look at another glitch just like that. Because Games for You said that if you wear the Gerudo mask as adult Link, then the wooden poles in the desert will light up, making them easier to see. Now this sounded super useful, so I wanted to try it. However, in order to test this one, I had to perform a glitch known as Ocarina items. This allows you to use any items regardless of your form, because normally you can only use masks as a child. Now for this trick to work, you have to quickly switch between screens and move both analog sticks a specific way on the perfect frame, which sounds pretty tough, and it is. I tried this for a while and couldn't pull it off no matter how hard I tried. I even watched multiple tutorials and still failed, so I just kind of gave up and looked for evidence of this trick online. After some time, I found this video that showed off the glitch and the poles lighting up in the desert. So this claim is true, but sadly enough, I am not MLG enough to do it myself. When people suggest things that should be covered in these videos, I usually try to stay away from stuff that has been covered too much or is too well known among every Zelda fan. However, at times I still include claims and myths like these in videos, either because I can quickly talk about them or they are very interesting. And this next one falls in the interesting category, because Wick said that you can go underneath the ice found in Zora's domain as an adult, and at the bottom you will find a secret alcove that is unused. And some theorized that the Triforce can be found here. Now this is a classic video game mystery, one that has been going around for ages, and I can already tell you it is false. You can get underneath the ice, and the alcove is there, but it leads nowhere. But there are loads of fake videos like these on the internet, showing that it leads to either the fabled unicorn fountain or the Triforce itself, but both of these are not in the final game. So that claim is false, but what Wick said is true. Gossip stones are weird, and in the game you can mess with them in a number of ways, leading to all kinds of crazy reactions. But there's one that I had missed and never heard of as well, because Kalachina said that if you bomb a gossip stone, it will begin to flash blue before taking off like a rocket. However, if you strike it when it's blue, then it will remain like that and won't take off. Now this was new to me, so I had to give it a shot. And yeah, this works. It remained blue and was kind of stuck in this state. Sure, if you hit it then it still tells you the time, but it won't take off like a rocket anymore. So this claim is true. Now, sure, I've played through this game multiple times, both on the N64 and 3DS, but still, I don't know everything, which might surprise some of you. Sure, I've been making videos on the Legend of Zelda for 9 years, but believe me, my brain doesn't remember every single detail. I wish. And so sometimes all of you in the comments are able to surprise me, like Kalachina, who said that there's a hidden compartment in the Dodongo Cavern behind one of the lava falls where you first fight the Lizalfos. Now this sounded like a troll comment at first. Let's make Wily jump into lava so he takes damage. But then when I went there to fact check this claim, I was surprised. The lava here doesn't damage you, and in one spot you can jump through. Now sure, it's only a small square hole with a single heart, which can be useful to regain some health after the fight with the Lizalfos, but it is there. So shockingly enough, this claim is true. Switching between the boots that you obtain in the game can be very useful. I mean, Nintendo built the entire Water Temple dungeon around this, which was actually super annoying in the N64 version of the game, but luckily enough they fixed that in the 3DS remake. However, can some of these boots also have drawbacks? Because Sir Skylight said that if you wear the hover boots during the final fight with Ganon, the knockback effect will be much stronger, which sounded logical. These boots make you slip and slide all over the place, so I bet this commenter is right. But still, I decided to test this claim, and I used the moving spikes found in Ganon's castle to do it, because these also throw you around as soon as you touch one of them. And when you compare normal boots to hover boots, you can see that Link is knocked back a little bit further. But this only happens because the momentum carries through when you hit the ground while wearing the hover boots. So I bet we could replicate this effect by just standing on ice. So yeah, this is true, but also not really. So far, we've figured out in these videos that the Gerudo Valley section of the game was a bit of a mess during development. There are loads of leftovers found here, and you're constantly switching between child and adult. In the very beginning of the game, you can't even do anything here. But people have found ways to sneak into this place using special tricks. And AP suggested I should try one of these. Apparently, you can get over the gate by using the Cucco found there, and this small wooden pole that's part of the bridge. So I decided to give it a shot, even though I am terrible at stuff like this. And surprise, surprise, I failed horribly. So I had to do some research to see if anyone else was able to pull it off. And yeah, I did find something. As you can see, it can be done. All you need is precise movement, some pause screen buffering, and a well-timed jump slash. So the claim is true, and it can even be useful during a normal playthrough if you want to get the heart piece found in the Gerudo Fortress as a child. Once again, we have a challenger in the comments, someone who also claims to have found a way to deal with the Cuccos when they attack. Gunslinger claimed that you just need to swim in the middle of a body of water, and if you sit there for a bit, the Cuccos will leave you alone because they hate water. Now, after seeing the last claim succeed, I was hopeful, so I went to the waterways that are close to Zora's domain. Once I arrived, I pissed off a Cucco and jumped into the water, only swimming to remain in the middle and in one place. Now, I stayed here for about 3 minutes, but the Cuccos just kept coming for me. Sure, they weren't successful, but they didn't stop either. So yeah, as far as I can see, this doesn't work. They don't calm down at all. So I would say that this claim is false. Water isn't the key to escaping these flying demons. Overall, dealing with the like enemy is quite easy. They are slow and don't do much damage. There are only two things that make them quite annoying. Once they grab you, you're stuck for a bit, and they will try to steal the gear that you carry. For example, the Hylian Shield. But the second thing I mentioned can be prevented by just swapping your shield to the mirror shield very quickly, and the same can be done with the tunics. Well, kinda says that works at least. So I went to the spirit temple because I could easily find one there, and I let it grab me to see if a quick swap would work. And yeah, this worked very well. I was able to keep my Hylian Shield, so I kept trying it, and each time I waited longer and longer. Now at some point the like will take your stuff, but as far as I saw, you don't have to be quick at all. You have quite a lot of time, so this works, and it's also super effective. Alright, we've done some experimenting with one of the cutscenes seen in the game, the one where you learn Saria's song, and we saw that you can manipulate the cutscene, but Sansa wondered what happens if you pull off the same trick but use bugs instead of a fish. Do the bugs also show up on her lap during the cutscene? Well, who knows? So I tried it to see what would happen. Luckily enough, I kept the old save file so I could immediately head over to her. When I arrived, I dropped the bugs before going up the stairs, and then I headed up to see if anything would be different. And sadly enough, the answer is no. As far as I could see, everything was normal. There were no bugs anywhere. But now I wonder, why does it work with a fish and not anything else like bugs? If any of you know, please tell me in the comments. The red tunic is a must in Ocarina of Time. Without it, the fire temple is literally impossible to get through because you will burn alive in seconds. And aside from that, it can also minimize fire damage, which we have mostly used it for in these videos. For example, when we were messing around with this cauldron in Gerudo Fortress. Because when we jumped in, we took less damage with the red tunic on. Now when I saw this, I expected that we took less damage because it was heat related. But then Kalajina, again, because man, this person has some good suggestions, claimed that you take less damage from all floor hazards due to coding shortcuts from Nintendo. And I could test this by standing on the invisible spike seen in the Shadow Temple, so I went there to give it a shot. When I entered the room, I put on the red tunic and stood on the spikes. Now as soon as I did this, I saw that I took damage very slowly. But with the normal green tunic on, I took damage every second I was on the spikes. So yeah, the claim is true. Any overtime damage is nerfed as soon as you have the red tunic on. Now some enemies in the game are rather clingy, with the Redeads being the best example because they will literally jump on you. As soon as this happens, most players usually start spamming buttons to get this thing off of them, so they can either kill it or get away. But Story Master said that they will actually never let you go if you do nothing. Even when you die and come back due to a fairy, the Redead will continue to hold on to you. Now I was a bit skeptical of this claim. Sure, the Redead won't let go of you until you die, but after that, you probably have the chance to escape. But still, I had to test it. So I went to the tomb found under Kakariko Village and confronted a Redead. Meanwhile, I had 4 fairies and bottles, so I could die again and again. Now when the Redead attacked me, it wouldn't let go of me until I died. But after coming back, the Redead did jump off, allowing me to escape. But if I stay put, then the Redead will jump on me again. So to an extent, the claim is true. If you do nothing, this enemy will kill you, but after that, you can easily escape. A lot of the myths and claims we cover are pretty useless. I mean, they won't make your next playthrough significantly easier. However, this next one is one of the best Ocarina of Time life hacks out there, if it actually works. Because again, Story Master made a bold claim that if you play the Song of Storms and activate the Lens of Truth after that, then the item won't drain your magic meter until the rain stops. Now this could be super useful when going through specific areas in the game like the Shadow Temple, so I decided to try it, and at first it didn't seem to work, but when I attempted to do it again, I was successful, and I noticed that this is even more useful than Story Master claimed. It's clearly some sort of bug and prevents the Lens of Truth from using any magic as long as it's activated, and even when the rain stops, it still won't drain your magic. This seems to work forever, which is incredibly handy, so this person was right. For some reason, Hyrule Field is haunted. Every night, Stalchildren will rise from the ground and attack anyone that comes close. And in these videos, we've looked into ways to avoid them. But so far, we haven't really succeeded. However, Zomborg suggested a way to avoid them. Just stick to the paths found in Hyrule Field, and then they won't spawn. Now this was a simple solution. So I did exactly what he said to see if they would leave me alone. And yeah, they did. No Stalchildren spawned. But as soon as I strayed from these dirt roads, the undead started to rise. Clearly, the paths are key to staying safe at night. And many also claimed that this was mentioned somewhere in the game. But I have no idea where. And if this is really true. But still, it's cool to see that this works. During the day, Hyrule Castle is very busy. All the shops are open, people are running around, and folks are eager to buy goods at the market. However, during the night, everyone is gone, and the place is flooded with an insane amount of dogs for some reason. Now, normally you have to find a certain dog for someone in order to get a heart piece, but apparently you can do something else with these dogs as well. CD told me that he was able to lure one of the dogs out of Castle Town during a randomizer playthrough of the game, and getting them close to the map transition area was key for this. So I went to town and tried to take one of these dogs with me. First, I tried it at the gate that leads to Hyrule Field. I slowly nudged the dog outside until Link ran out automatically. But when I was outside, the dog was gone. So this didn't work. So I tried something else. I did the same thing, but this time at the path that leads to Hyrule Castle. However, again, the dog was gone. So I tried this twice, and each time it didn't work, which means that this claim is just false. Now, aside from sticking to the path, Zomborg and many others in the comment section also suggested that I should try to wear the bunny hood at night, because when you have it on, the Stalchildren will also leave you alone. But is this true? Am I being gaslit by my comment section? Are they manipulating me with evil intent? Well, who knows? So I just decided to put this silly mask on and ran around Hyrule Field at night to see if any Stalchildren came after me. And the answer is no. None of them spawned. But as soon as I took it off, I was in for hell. Clearly the mask changed things. So I would say that all of you were right. You weren't messing with me whatsoever. When you go to the fishing hole scene in the game, there's only one thing you can do there. Fish. I mean, it's in the name. And most people who go there do exactly that. But I heard from someone in the comments, this commenter specifically, that you can catch more than just fish. When you're an adult, the owner of this establishment wears a hat. And if you're good, you can steal it using the fishing rod he gives you. So I decided to grab it. And after a couple of attempts, I was able to get a hold of it. As soon as I had it, I ran around in victory and kind of teased him as well, because when I talked to him, he asked me if I could give it back, but I said no and ran away. So yeah, this is true, and I gotta say, this is a pretty fun Easter egg, even though it wasn't new to me. Some enemies have weird behaviors that most of us don't know about because you never see them. However, these could be useful. For example, we found out in the past that some enemies are attracted to bombs. And according to Jagatra, blue bubbles, like the ones seen in the Forest Temple, will fly to bombs as soon as you drop one. This made me curious. Will they actually do this? And can you kill them this way? Well, I found one and threw a bomb to see what would happen. And immediately it went bonkers and flew at the bomb, hovering around it until it exploded, which didn't actually kill it. Sure, it was knocked to the ground, so taking it out was quite easy at that point. And I tried this multiple times, and each time they fell for it. So yeah, this is true, and I never knew about this. I mean, I never really throw bombs at enemies anyway, because most of them move around too much. But it's cool to see that this works. When you first enter Kakariko Village in Ocarina of Time, you will see that there are Cuccos everywhere. Now, if you put in the effort to collect them and return these chickens to their owner, you can get a bottle for it. But is there a way to cheat this? Well, maybe. And this person from the comments came up with a good idea. He said, will attacking a Cucco inside of the pen allow you to finish the side quest? Now, this is a genius idea, because when you attack a Cucco, a bunch will fly at you. So maybe if enough of these fly into into the pen, then you can finish the quest without collecting a single Cucco. So I decided to give this a shot, and as you can see, loads of them are going into the pen. So I spoke to the quest giver to see if it was actually working. But then I realized that she doesn't care about these Cuccos whatsoever. You need to throw specific ones into the pen, not a bunch of random ones. So while the idea is really good, this just doesn't work. Now this next one is rather short and simple, but still it was requested in the comments, and this person even helped out the channel by donating. So you know what that means. This person will 100% end up in a video. Foxy Kitty said that Link can do a trick shot in Ocarina of Time. All you do is have the bow out while jumping off a cliff or edge, and then he can still shoot monsters. He can even shoot arrows while doing a backflip. Now I had seen this before, but still I booted up the game so I could show you all these epic trick shots. Now as you can see, all of this works, and Link's skills are very impressive to say the least. But who knows where or when he actually learned how to do this. Maybe when he was locked in the Sacred Realm for years after grabbing the Master Sword? Who knows? One thing that you need to look out for in Ocarina of Time from the very start is Skulltulas, because they are found on almost any climbable wall, so you need to get rid of those before going up. Normally I do this by shooting them with the slingshot or bow, but Lucas Adams, who donated, and I gotta thank him for that, claimed that the Megaton Hammer could be used to get rid of these pesky critters. Just hit the ground and they will fall down immediately and die due to the shockwave. Now this sounded super handy, so I tried it. And yeah, as you can see, they drop dead like flies, which can speed up sections like these where you need to climb Death Mountain, which is pretty great. Now, even though Ocarina of Time is 1,000,000 years old at this point, people are still finding new things in this game. And of course, a lot of these new findings, claims, and myths end up in the comment section of my videos, which is pretty neat. Recently, I even came across one that surprised me a bit, because Poes said that you can push the moblins found in the Sacred Forest Meadow in water, but they won't drown and will continue to attack you if you come into range, which sounded crazy, but is this real? Well, I went to the forest and gave this a shot, but I noticed something interesting. When I tried to trick one of these moblins, he couldn't run into the water. There was some sort of invisible barrier preventing him from going further, but in the end, I found a way around it by making the moblin hit a wall, and so he fell into the water. And yeah, he was stuck there without drowning. So clearly, the claim is true. Even though Nintendo tried to prevent this from happening, it's still possible, and they didn't program a drown animation for this enemy. Now, as most of you know, if you become a member, then you're at the top of my list, and you will always be featured in a video. And today we will look at something that Julian Lanning suggested a while back. Apparently, there's a hidden room that I never found inside of Ganon's castle. He said that there's a hidden room underneath the small stone bridge, filled with fairies and 4 business scrubs. But you can only see the entrance with the lens of truth. Now this could be super useful, so I decided to check it out. And yeah, as you can see, there is an entrance here, and inside you will find loads of resources that are worth their weight in gold when taking on all the challenges seen in Ganon's castle. So next time I go through this place, I know where to go when I need stuff, because usually I went back to Kakariko Village for arrows and other items. Now, those of you that pay attention saw that Julian suggested another thing that I should try in Ocarina of Time. A secret grotto that can be found in the Sacred Forest Meadow right before you go to the Forest Temple. He said that if you play the Song of Storms, a hole will open in the corner. So I did just that to see what would happen. Now, as you can see, he was right, but in the end, not much can be found here. Only 2 business scrubs selling potions. So while it is true, I would never really visit this place because there's no reason to do it. In the end, I would rather hold fairies in my bottles. Once you finally go to the future in Ocarina of Time, you will notice that a lot has changed. Hyrule Castle is a mess, the castle itself has become a dark fortress, and Kakariko Village is kind of thriving, weirdly enough. However, when you go to Lon Lon Ranch, you will notice that evil has taken over, and Link can actually reverse the damage pretty quickly. But in order to do so, he has to beat Ingo in a race. Now, this is a rather simple task, and after doing so, you can use Epona anywhere. But is this the only horse you can use? Because Karu wondered, can you steal Ingo's horse in Ocarina of Time instead of Epona? Well, I had never tried to interact with the other horses, so I tried it. Now, it took me a while to finally find a good save file because everyone immediately saves Epona. But luckily enough, Thinkifer was able to help. So I booted up the 3DS version of the game, went to the ranch, and tried to use Ingo's horse, which is actually possible. Now, as far as I noticed, riding this horse isn't any different from Epona. But hey, clearly you could do it. Now for our last claim, we will look at a classic, something I have seen before but never really attempted myself. As we all know, Hyrule Field is a dangerous place at night because loads of Stalchildren will spawn and attack you. However, this isn't all. They will become bigger as you kill more of them. But how far can you push this? Because JJ Gone Insane said that there's no limit. So if you use cheats to prevent the sun from rising, they will only get bigger as you keep killing them. So I did just that to see how big I could make one of these Stalchildren, and as you can see, they kept getting bigger and bigger. Now, after doing this for a good while, I was able to create a massive Stalchild. He was so big that he could even rival Captain Kita. It even became incredibly hard to hit him because he was so high up, forcing me to resort to using the boomerang so I could stun the monster and land a hit. But, as you can see, this claim is true, and you can push all of this pretty far as well. In an older video, we looked at a special enemy that only spawns when you kill a lot of the lesser versions. I'm talking about the levers that you find in front of the Spirit Temple from Ocarina of Time. If you kill enough of them, a big blue one that is more powerful than the others will spawn at some point. But after seeing the gigantic Stalchildren, which we covered in the previous video, Total Noob wondered, do these also grow just like the Stalchildren? Well, I had no clue, so I decided to kill a billion of them to see what exactly would happen. Now, when the second one spawned, I noticed something. It was just as big as the previous one, and after killing more of them, they kept being the same size. So yeah, as far as I can see, these levers will never become any bigger, but they do keep spawning, making it a decent way to make money. But that's about it. So this claim is sadly enough false. It would have been cool if they actually kept growing in size, just like the Stalchildren, but that doesn't happen. In the previous installment of this lovely myth-busting series, we looked at riding Ingo's horse in Ocarina of Time, and after looking into that, a lot of people came up with new things I could test in and around Lon Lon Ranch. Diaiga, for example, claimed that Ingo's horse can't jump over the taller fence, and if you ride his horse, you can still trigger the race against him at some point, but you can't win without Epona. However, are any of these claims even real? Well, first I tried to jump over the tall fence with Ingo's horse. And as you can see, this isn't possible. I just end up running into the fence face first. And I tried this multiple times. So I tried to trigger the race, which required me to burn a bunch of rupees by riding Ingo's horse. However, no matter how often I did this, he wouldn't challenge me to a race. So who knows if you could win with another horse aside from Epona? Because as you can see, it isn't really possible. Well, in the 3DS version at least. Sadly enough, I didn't have a good save file on hand for the N64 version. Sometimes Zelda enemies have some weird behaviors. For example, in Twilight Princess, Ganondorf is obsessed with the fishing rod. However, sometimes I hear about new ones. For example, Lucas Adams said that the Redeads and Gyptos from the N64 titles will revive each other when one of them goes down. Now, I had never seen this, so I booted up Ocarina of Time and started killing some of the Redeads found in Hyrule Castle and underneath the graveyard seen in Kakariko Village. And to my surprise, the others did walk up to the fallen Redead as soon as it hit the floor, but after that, not much happened. At some point, the Redead corpse even despawns, and so the other Redeads will just walk away like nothing happened. So yeah, they do react to the whole situation, but as far as I could see, they do not revive each other or anything like that, which means that this claim is false. Once you go through a Zelda game a couple of times, you're usually less patient in later playthroughs. You've gone through the motions 100 times already, and so you often try to skip certain sections or complete them more efficiently. And Bob the Exile told me of a trick that would allow me to skip the entire maze section of the Sacred Forest in Ocarina of Time. All I had to do is summon the Scarecrow right at the start, and at that point you can just grab onto him with the hookshot to get on top. As soon as you're there, you can just skip the whole maze and go right to the end. But does that really work? Well, I went to the maze and played the song that summons the scarecrow. And as you can see, he does appear. And grabbing onto him is very easy. So I was able to skip the entire thing with ease, which was great because man, these moblins can be quite annoying. So Bob was right. Now, when I talk to people about the work I do, they often think that Nintendo is just adorable. They make games for kids, and they aren't that scary or bloody. But as we all know as longtime Nintendo fans, this isn't really true. I mean, the Arbiter's Grounds is already, sheesh, a lot to take in. And the Shadow Temple is also kind of terrifying, especially enemies like Wall Masters that all of a sudden drop on top of you. But are there ways to prevent them from grabbing you? Well, according to this person from the comments, there's a simple trick that stops them immediately. All you need to do is go into first person mode. If you do this, they won't grab you anymore. Well, until you go out of this mode. Now this sounded pretty handy, so I tried it. And as you can see, as soon as I go into first person, the Wall Master will leave me alone. So yeah, this way you can avoid them, but the effect fades pretty fast. Now in this video, we've already looked at a way to escape the horrifying Wall Masters that drop down on you in Ocarina of Time. Ruben Doomsday said that the jump/attack will also reset these foul beasts. So of course I had to test this one as well when I was in the Shadow Temple. And as you can see, this does work. The shadow and menacing sound effects disappear as soon as I perform this attack, which shows that there are multiple ways to reset this monster's behavior. And so Ruben was right. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out the other myth-busting videos I have on the channel covering Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Majora's Mask, and even Echoes of Wisdom. Aside from that, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, because then you won't miss any videos, and it really helps out.